Very excited about today's topic of how to outsmart a stalker or gang stalkers. So, I have been experiencing very significant and non-stop stalking for about 2 years now. I became privy to it a year and a half. And my stalker, or the person stalking me, is dangerously obsessed, especially right now. And it's come in all forms. It's been physical, so constant spying and stalking around my home. It's been on the energetic levels. They've spent a small fortune hiring professionals that do dark magic, that do all sorts of occult to gain access to spy, to throw negative magic, curse energy, hexes, you name it at me, right? And I've talked about that in the spiritual warfare video. This has also been a lot of cyberbullying. This is happening on social media platforms. I've talked about plagiarism of my work and spying of my social media. Thankfully, this is my only platform. So there's been a lot of different veins it's been happening. Now, another level that it's been happening very consistently is through gang stalking. And this is come about because my stalker, as most probably are, is absolutely on the narcissistic spectrum from my point of view. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychotherapist. I have no legal right to diagnose anyone. There are no names being offered here. As much information as you can if you're dealing with this. So, one thing to note, I often like to pull words apart and look at them phonetically, flip them upside down, and find the spell casting in them. So when I look at stalking, phonetically speaking, if I break the word in two, I see stalking, right? And that's very much been my experience with this stalking and this gang stalking. Now, it was meant to stall my life progress, stall my happiness, stall my forward momentum, stall my prosperity, stall my emotional joy, all things intended, absolutely geared towards stalling my love life. That was a huge one for my stalker because they're obsessed, right? Now, somebody who is obsessed, in my take of it, finds the object of their obsession to be their possession. That's how they view it. Now, that's inhumane, right? That dehumanizes the person that is being focused on because humans are not possessions, right? So this is the viewpoint that they're coming from. It's very important to begin to grasp, if you're dealing with stalking and gang stalking, if you're dealing with narcissistic networks that are using smear campaigns and they're using scapegoating and the flying monkeys and all of these types of situations, first and foremost, educate yourself. Because one thing I've learned about sociopathy and psychopathy and narcissistic tendencies and everything in between is that for a normal person, and usually you're going to be a highly empathic person if you're being attacked in this way. They love empaths. It is such a big energetic feed for anybody on the narcissistic spectrum to get their tentacles into an empath, man, because we got a lot of emotions, right? So somebody who is highly empathic and highly emotional and compassionate, they have a really difficult time wrapping their mind around the way this other person or these people are presenting, because it doesn't make sense. Why would a human act this way or do these things? So a huge piece for you, please, is to educate yourself. First, you need to understand certain things such as, for example, somebody who is a psychopath or a sociopath. So I am assuming, I am not a psychologist or a psychotherapist, right? That somebody on the narcissistic spectrum also may have, like sociopaths and psychopaths have, a smaller amygdala. They have less ability, biologically speaking, physiologically speaking, to feel the emotions, right? They like to think that they are smarter and they've got things under control, but thinking something is so and something being so is very different. Studies on the reptilian brain show that, for example, when we're shopping, right? We believe, we tell ourselves we're making rational decisions, but the reality is we think we're being rational as opposed to actually being rational. So this is something that you can start to understand about anybody on the narcissistic spectrum. Because of lack of empathy and emotional range, this puts them from how I experience it. Okay, this is all my take. This is my testimony. This is my opinion, my experience, right? Is that when you remove emotion or, less emotion, you become more primal, animalistic. It's absolutely more predatory, right? And it's more in line with wild nature. So in nature, we've got, apex predators, we've got prey. Nature is kind of in this constant PTSD. I'm anthropomorphizing it right now because humans, I think animals, I know animals experience PTSD. I work with a lot of animals, so maybe I'm not, but it's a PTSD type, always being on your toes, right? That fight, flight, freeze, fawn, because prey predator dynamics are a part of life 24/7. So when you're dealing with narcissistic networking and all of these types of smear campaigns and flying monkeys and all of this, it's the same energy. It's constantly putting you in the frequencies, the energies, the emotional state, the neurological repatterning of PTSD type trauma and torment. So you have to immediately start addressing that. In addition to that, it's very important to understand that you're dealing with somebody who is acting less like a human and more like an animal. So logically speaking, if I'm looking at a predator in front of me, let's say I've got a cougar in front of me, I know better than to walk up to that cougar and try to pet it and expect it to roll over and let me scratch its belly. That just would be quite dumb, right? So why are we looking at these people that are actually more animalistic and assuming them to act in a human way and then being shocked and so surprised and baffled when they're not? They're not on the same range as you with your emotions and your ways of feeling and thinking. So can you get into their mindset? Very, very important, because that'll help you clarify where they're coming from, which is very important to countering, right? We must understand our enemy. They've turned themselves into your enemy, basically, but you need to understand their strategy to show up with the proper tools and techniques to defend yourself, right? So we've got somebody acting more animalistic, which can assist you in the way you're framing them, right? Now, they have framed you absolutely out of sorts because they're already looking at you like a possession, and they've placed you in a box. They've placed you in a box of an experience that they've had with you and perceived through your insecurities and how they can take from you, which, if they're looking at you as prey, they've devalued you. They're on a higher pedestal in their own mind. And therefore they claim right, or entitlement over your energy, your time, your life force, your happiness, your emotions, what have you. So creating understanding and learning education around very common experiences: narcissism, flying monkeys.
Do what you like with the others, but I want her alive and unharmed. They'll give you no trouble, I promise you that. I've sent a little insect on ahead to take the fight out of them. Take special care of those ruby zippers. I want those most of all. Now fly! Fly!
Gang stalking, scapegoating, smear campaigns. All of these things are prolifically common when it comes to narcissistic people, narcissistic tendencies, but they feel so shocking, unique, and weird to a normal and or more empathic person, because we just would never do this. So when you get the education on what's really normal it can help you calm down and see that actually, while this is ridiculous that you're experiencing it, to say the least, it's baseline for what, narcissism shows up with. Okay. So I have been experiencing an extreme amount of stalking and gang stalking, flying monkeys, scapegoat, smear campaigns. Now, for anybody who is, somebody who is a person of interest and you've experienced very specific targeting, and maybe you remember your covert programming and you have access to true memory from the projects, then you totally understand how it is to go through this type of targeting and torment. And you also probably understand that when you start educating yourself and doing a deep dive into trying to wrap your brain around what the hell is going on, you fall into a rabbit hole. You start gorging on information in general, and you start, kind of regurgitating what you've learned to people around you, and you're in this really skeptical, paranoid, PTSD type energy, which all it does in turn, unfortunately, is creates them to start backing away from you, feeling like you're weird, you're off, you are put more into isolation. And it's a perfect setup that you're playing into to create and help the stalker, the narcissist, bring on board more flying monkeys. So be careful here, because the first thing that your ego is going to want to do, whether you're in victim mode or you're in attack mode, because you want to go tit for tat, right? And you want to butt and go head to head with this, that is probably the worst move to make, because you're feeding the fire, you're looping yourself more into the network, and you're giving solid, quote unquote, proof to those that are already conforming into flying monkeys to start to turn against you. Because from their eyes and their experience, from your mouth and your words, you're sounding like crazy making. So pull back. As hard as it is, we have to find patience, we have to find humility, and we have to find wisdom. We have to bide our time. Okay. Now I know that's very difficult, because also when we have to do that, it brings up a tremendous amount often of unworthiness and shame, because we don't have the ability to efficiently stand up for ourselves at this time. And in that takes a tremendous amount of wisdom, trust, and patience, which is very difficult to do, especially when you're being victimized, though it's really imperative. And most of us, we don't learn that for a while. We learn it through experience. And then you just get to a point where you've been tit for tatting for a while, you're seeing more gang stalking happening and more flying monkeys, and then you have to submit because you realize you're making it worse, right? So my experience with physical stalking has been pretty extreme. There was probably a good 6 months at least where my stalker was driving real slow, drive real slow by my house, right? I'm gonna post a picture for you guys of my view looking out, and I'm in a pretty public area in my little town. And I also would ask for you to take a moment with this picture and send protection and love for me, and calling on the judgment of spirit and asking spirit to filter the energies that are being sent right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So it was happening so much so that my neighbors were starting to comment and asking what's going on, right? Now, this started happening with gang stalking. I started hearing about my name coming up in group texts with random neighbors. I don't even know. Where is this coming from? And I started witnessing people just kind of popping into, places that I'd frequent or going by my home a little too often. And I, of course, at this point didn't know I need to keep these things to myself. I need to bide time while I'm gaining proof, because you need proof. Legally, proof is very, very important. There's a huge difference when we're speaking legally to knowing something and proving something. So you immediately start to collect proof, right? I didn't have any proof yet. I was just offering spoken word. And this starts allowing flying monkeys to create, because the friend group is connected. Word gets back to the stalker that, you know, I'm saying these things, and it's feeding the fire, right? Now, people that are on narcissistic spectrum, stalkers and all this, they're always going to lie out their gourd, right? They're going to say all sorts of elaborate stories, probably so many they can't keep up with them. So I'm positive there's a tremendous amount of gossip flying around. There's all sorts of stories being said. And, you know, anybody worth their own 2 salt knows that if somebody's going to gossip to you, they're going to gossip about you. I do not care how close you think you are to this person. If they're a gossip, they're a gossip, right? And when you start gossiping too, or even listening, when we condone gossip, which I've done plenty, I do it all the time, there's karma linked to that, unfortunately. And when somebody starts coloring somebody else through your perception because of what they're saying, and you start viewing them differently and believing, even in part, that that might be accurate because they said it and there's some level of trust there, just because in general, a lot of us trust people, or maybe you've built a relationship with this person. You start to frame that person differently, and you've already started the process of becoming a flying monkey and making them a scapegoat and isolating them, right? And this happens really quick, especially if we're dealing, you know, with love relationships where there's breakups and then there's, you know, people not hanging out with certain people at certain times, or all of this type of thing. That happens real fast, right? I think we've all seen that. So legally speaking, you need to start documenting everything. Save the texts, get a recorder. Any conversation that you're going to have, record it. Learn the law of your state. Do you legally need to inform them that they're being recorded in order to allow this recording to be submissible? If you need to go to court, if you can get a restraining order, if you don't have enough proof yet to get a restraining order, just make it known, put it on record with the local police that you're having issues and this is what you're experiencing, right? Now let's get into some of the, you know, more unfortunate but true experiences of trackers, okay? Things that happen a lot is a tracker being placed on your car, spy cams being placed in your environment or your home, hacking of your accounts, especially if it's an ex-lover and they know passwords or ways to get in or things like this. Hacking into your phone. Somebody doesn't even have to physically have your phone anymore. They can remotely hack into your phone, right? And then we've got things I've talked about, which is like defamation of character. Maybe we've got slander. We've got the theft of other objects or things, plagiarism, social media. You've got maybe mic taps around, what have you. And I know all of this sounds, again, really skeptical, but if you're dealing with a stalker that's really off of their rocker and has gone to the extreme, which means that they have mental issues. There are significant mental health issues here if this is happening. And if they're coming at you and you're most likely an empathic person, you're probably already playing too nice if you're allowing them in any capacity in your life. You need to block them completely. As quick as you can, you need to get away and separate yourself, which often means you're going to lose friends. And it often means that those friends are going to turn into flying monkeys. It is what it is. But your safest bet is to distance yourself physically, emotionally, energetically, mentally, spiritually, psychically, what have you, sexually from this person. It's really important. And we don't have to do it in a dramatic way, because the more drama you bring into the situation, the more they're going to buck, right? We do this passively. I put out videos on this. We gray rock. Right? So start documenting everything. Are they doxing you? Now, doxing is a term, or dropping dox, that means exposing sensitive private information online. Hackers do this, people like this do this. It's meant to harass, threaten, or get revenge towards you. Doxing is very dangerous because it means that they're leaking your information onto the dark web. This comes from avast.com. And one thing that you can do is contact data brokers. If you find that your information has been doxed and your information has been leaked onto the dark web, which you can find quite easily if you get certain security programs that are good, and they'll go through and scan all your stuff, right? It'll look for everything online and the dark web. I highly suggest you do this. You might also be experiencing being blackballed. This is when somebody, you know, a candidate in a private club, a group, a social group, right? A friend group is rejecting you, typically through secret ballot. That's a very formal way of saying it, but it's kind of like when the group decides they're out, right? Especially this can happen when you've started pulling away, because to hang out with this group is dangerous for you because they're still hanging out with your stalker. That's something I've experienced very thoroughly. So now the gang stalking is a real intriguing experience. So for me, I've got primary stalker, which one interesting thing about my situation is none of the men are the brain of the strategies here. There's women in the background that are the smarts of the entire operations, and these operations are pretty prolific. I mean, you guys, there are some really big criminal, illegal strategies that have been happening in my scenario that it's pretty amazing. There's so much information that I'm actually tickled pink to share once it all comes out, but it goes pretty deep. People wouldn't believe it. You know, probably not believing it now. Who cares? I don't care. I get to say it, and those who know, right? But the women in the group are the masterminds behind it. The men are just doing the grunt work. My stalker is a male, but there's a female mastermind behind it. And she's the one that has really been pressing the dark magic, which is very dangerous. Not just towards, you know, who it's directed at, but those who are practicing it. I feel really, you know, I can't say I pity, because you do what you do, but those that were hired to do dark magic, man, are they having a tough go? Because as I already said in the spiritual warfare video, everything has been countered and returned to sender. I already know that their health is really poor right now. They're bankrupt, they're in poverty, and they already know exactly why. Because as I said, the karma is playing out exactly the way they put it towards me, so it can't be denied. Okay, and this is visible to their social network. It's becoming very visible to the public. So anyhow, my situation is that I've got a stalker who's become obsessed and is working in tandem with another female who's the brains of the situation. And then there's been a gang stalker, let's say this one primary gang stalker who's now become my frenemy, who has co-signed my stalker. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that when the stalker is smear campaigning and slandering and telling lies, and actually even coming up with fake proof to back their lies, that the people around them, unbeknownst to them, believe them, right? Or even if they're not sure, it puts a bug in their brain, which starts to create separation. So there's one primary gang stalker that's co-signed my stalker, and has also now co-signed a fake nice person who's also involved because of the situation of where narcissists love to have harems. So a narcissist doesn't necessarily need a sexual harem, although they usually have that when they're not in monogamous relationships. And even when they are in monogamous relationships, they've still got people on the side that if they were ever to break up, they could immediately go back to those people. So it can be a sexually based harem, and or it's usually multiple, a friend-based harem. But in his harem is kind of still based around love and lust, but it's indirectly around other people that he's not necessarily engaging sexually with, but he's kind of handling their love lives and their lust lives and things like this. So that's how he can anchor his possession, right, and his obsession. But there's another level of obsession with him in regard to me, because I had to withdraw my energies to protect myself. And that was taken offensively and personally, even though that person knows that my stalker is dangerous and that my gang stalker has co-signed my stalker, right? A lot going on here. Okay, so anyhow, so document everything. Get security cameras. They're really affordable these days, right? If you think that there are spy cams or even mics, You know, you can get these little spy cam detectors. They're super affordable too. These are great to have too. Anyways, if you travel a lot, you should really unfortunately be scanning your hotels and your Airbnbs at this point. I don't know if you guys know, but a spy cam is about this size. It's the size of a pinhole. It's the size of the reset button when you have to stick a pin in a hole to reset your equipment. That's the size of it. So this is really important. If you at all think, or if you're just at the state where you're in so much PTSD and you're in paranoia and skeptical, you need some peace of mind, scan. Give yourself peace of mind. You need to do what you need to do to calm your energetics, right? Another thing is if you think that you have a tracker on your car, usually if this person is, you know, this is an amateur, okay? Then if they're going to place a tracker on your car, it's going to be in an easy to reach area. So usually the wheel well or just on the underside of the frame, you can get one of these. You can get, you know, an inspection mirror that goes under the car, real easy to look for it. Unfortunately, it's difficult for certain spy cams and trackers to track the IP address because you can get them generally on Amazon at this point. But there are other ways to get proof that that has been a purchase through the person that you suspect has done it. On one of my friend's cars, we found a tracker and she reported it to the police. There were 2 incidences, maybe 3, where she heard somebody stalking outside of her home in the middle of the night. That's been reported as well. So it's, you know, it's a real deal, guys. This stuff happens a lot more than you would expect, unfortunately. Once I got into relationship again or started dating somebody new, and my stalker got into relationship and started dating someone new, the physical stalking subsided, right? Because first of all, that person doesn't want to trigger themselves seeing somebody hanging around my place. And of course, they don't want to bring attention to them, to their new person. But all of the online stalking, the energetic, emotional, telepathic, what have you, continued, the psychological. And then the gang stalking ramped up on a whole nother degree. And then we had a new thing called, what I like to say is Operation Split 'em Up, right? Now this is pretty common too. So my stalker then started a very thorough smear campaign to get information, false information, lies and gossip into the thoughts and the mind of the person that I was seeing to split us up. And unfortunately, his co-signer and other people backed this. And this has continued and been promoted and pretty much in their minds solidified. And when that relationship for me dissolved, you know, the friend group continued. And then everybody jumped on the bandwagon even more of why to ostracize and isolate Chloe, and, you know, why Chloe's not showing up. She thinks she's better than everybody else, but no one likes to bring up, oh, well, actually, there's a stalker. That's pretty dangerous, spreading lies. I know about it, but I'm not going to mention it. Now, to the co-signing gang stalker, his fall from grace is going to be when the lies that he told on his boat to the group, and while in the vehicle that was towing his boat to the people in the vehicle, when that comes out, which I've been told some of these lies, I kept my mouth shut. The rest of them, Spirit showed me in my dream. It's real intriguing. But anyhow, it is what it is, right? So this is going to happen. You may be experiencing covert narcissism through fake niceness, or people being sweet. Some of these people are really good at this. But, you know, a lot of personality types definitely have a Jekyll and Hyde. For example, I'm a Gemini sun, and Geminis are twins, right? So if we're especially not integrated and we haven't done our shadow work, Geminis can Jekyll and Hyde real quick. They're, you know, sometimes it can be shocking, but then when you see the other side of somebody and learn the backstory, it makes sense. But they've sold you a real good lie, especially if they've played victim in a situation where they need some kind of rescuing or help, or if they appeal to lust or vanity, you know, all these things that we already talked about, right? When I talked about the sexually transmitted demons, right? Going right back to that. So that fake niceness is real important to begin to spot, because Covert narcissism is very difficult to spot often, and it's really, really malignant. Because you can be faked out. Even covert narcissists fake themselves. They know, but they love to play the subconscious card where I know, but I don't know, so I don't have to look at it, right? That whole thing. And that can be real dangerous, especially when it comes to scapegoating, flying monkeys, and smear campaigns. Because no one would ever think any different of that nice person, right? But all the while, there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. Now, a big part of why for me this has gone on so long is because I definitely am somebody who can be gullible and naive. And, the gang stalking and the stalker know that about me. And they framed me in that light. They think that I'm weak and that I'm easy to break and that I don't have anything going for me. It's so weird how people frame something. They like see an experience. Let's say they see you heartbroken or they see you down and out, and they take a snapshot of that moment in time and they freeze frame you. And they don't expect you to ever grow or expand your being. So one thing that has really saved me is to learn my attachment style. Now, I have anxious attachment style. And I've worked tremendously hard on that, always working on that, to move into a more secure attachment style. But that's a huge piece to understand, is your attachment style, because that's going to speak to how you get triggered and how you respond and how you react, and also what you're attracting to you. So once you've come to a place where you're ready to start to look at the parts of you that, don't want to be the victim anymore. Right? You're just so sick and tired and fed up of feeling isolated and ostracized and paranoid and victimized and all of this, that there's a moment where you need to rise up and champion this and understand, well, you know what? I'm a spiritual warrior, or whatever you are. Maybe you're not spiritual, right? But my point of view, I'm a spiritual warrior. These are very worthy components and adversaries. I am in training right now. And I can step up to the plate and understand that everything can be countered, especially from my very unique vantage point where I've been able to prophesy what's coming a year out. And that was another thing, is I got all this information. It's like Spirit said, okay, you're about to go through this. We're about to put you in some massive training. But I couldn't sort the information in the time. The time and the people have been real difficult for me. I got all this information, didn't realize it's a year out, it's 2 years out. So I kept thinking everything's happening right now. And then I kept thinking it's that individual, when maybe it's this individual, that I'm getting all of this information in timelines. But what has helped me tremendously is that the foresight and the understanding behind the scenes. And I have said for decades now that when it comes to information, nothing is truly hidden if you know how and where to look. Lies frequently are very erratic. We've talked about this. If you know how to access truth, if you know how to read frequency signature, all of this stuff is very spottable. If you know how to remote view, if you know how to move back into astral timelines, doesn't mean it's another lifetime. It could be 20 minutes ago. You can watch everything happening, but take care, because you don't want to fall into the space where you're also becoming a spy just like them. You have to take care of yourself, but you don't want to invest all of your being so much, or now you're obsessed, right? And now it's your addiction and not just theirs. You have to protect your mental, emotional health. You have to learn to passively disengage. Very, very important, and really difficult to do, because while you're going through this process, you will absolutely go through an ego death. They refuse the ego death. That's why they're coming at you. But there's a reason this is happening. There's a matching frequency in your energy to this. You're not just a victim of happenstance. There's connection. There is karma. Okay. Now, I've talked to you guys forever about how much I absolutely love Ho'oponopono. And probably the one of the main things that has helped me gain ground and find my strength back and grab my sovereignty, doing my inner child work, healing my wounds, because they're always going to come after your core wounds, especially if they're coming at you psychically. They're going to hone in on your core wounds and try to bring you down. Where is your shame and your unworthiness? They're going to find that and they're going to poke and poke and poke. Okay. Working on your inner child, healing your core wounds so you shore up your energy and they don't have access anymore, especially if they're stalking, because when they're stalking, they're energetically pressing you 24/7, especially if you're having an experience like me where they're hacking into dream time. They're trying to gather information. They're trying to attack you from dream time. Then you really don't get a reprieve, right? But it's all fantastic training, right? Okay. Now, when you move into a sovereign energy and they continue to press you, what begins to happen is kind of like an implosion. And this is really great for you because now you shored up your energy. They can't make you feel so constantly skeptical and paranoid and, you know, in that PTSD flight space where your neurology and your neurons and your nervous system and your emotions and your adrenals are on overload constantly. You're holding your sovereignty. So now as they start to press you, that energy comes at you, it builds and it goes right back on them. Just exactly what you want. Now, in my specific scenario, I think the most unfortunate and upsetting piece of this for me has been that there is a very, very gifted, highly empathic child who has been caught in the mix. He has been raised by highly narcissistic parents, and he is becoming a man that is now at a place where it's real important to know, you know, as we're growing, and even now, right? If we don't overcome the downfalls, the pitfalls, the wounding that our parents or our caretakers have imposed to us, we become like them. We begin to walk their path. This child, who is a man now, he's becoming a man, but he's still someone's child, has been severely emotionally neglected. He's gone through a tremendous amount of narcissistic abuse. He's been used as a scapegoat. And it's really, really unfair and it's heartbreaking. And I'm constantly protecting him and watching him. But, you know, for me, it's one thing to come at somebody, but don't use your children, okay? We need to take care of those we love or we lose them. And we don't lose them because something happens to them. He's protected. But we lose them because they decide probably at some point that you're not worth having in their life anymore. You're not healthy. You don't help them. They have grown more mature than you. And that's a very difficult experience to have. I had to go through that in my lifetime. And so I just want you to know, sweetheart, if you're watching this, that I'm very, very proud of you. And I think you're doing a tremendous job. And I'm always protecting you and watching over you. And you absolutely are going to gain absolution and you will be blessed and you are watched over, and Spirit is really, really proud of you. Now, going back to the understanding that if you go tit for tat and trigger those that are stalking you and gang stalking you, and by telling other people about what's going on or you know, trying to just defend yourself, right? It's normal, it's logical to try to defend yourself. But what you're doing usually is you're fueling into their strategic plan that creates more isolation and ostracization for you. Now, lucky for me, in my experience, I've been very well trained, you know, in regard to emotional neglect, ostracization, and rejection. This is a part of why I'm manifesting this experience, because that's a heavy piece of my background, is those experiences. I've also always been the black sheep of the family, and my views and my lifestyle were rejected pretty thoroughly quite quickly in my family. Not in any like horrific way, but just obvious that, you know, I'm the eccentric one. They think I'm crazy. They're scared of what I do. They don't talk to me about it. A lot of them don't even talk to me at all. They're scared of me. They don't understand it, so they fear it. People fear what they don't understand, right? So I had to learn real quick, you know, to detach from what other people think and how they include you. Now, there is an understanding and anxious attachment that the core wound of that is neglect, it's abandonment, right? It's rejection. So this whole situation has really brought up a fantastic learning experience for me around dealing with my core wounding. Now, also, COVID and living a nomadic lifestyle for 3.5 years has also trained me very thoroughly of how to embrace being alone and forced into isolation for long bouts. A huge fallacy that was made by the stalker and the gang stalker and this whole group is that being alone equals loneliness. I am not lonely. If I choose to be alone, it's highly strategic because I'm smart and I'm patient and I know to wait it out like I've done. Because if I wait it out, you bring on your own checkmate and then I get to just let go of all of it and walk away. Another wonderful thing about me withdrawing my energy and staying alone into myself is I can put my energy into my creative works, boost my prosperity, tremendously, which was shocking to them as well. They expected me to be destitute because they put so much work into me being pitiful, broke, heartbroken, lonely. And they had duping delight around it, which is another shocking thing. And specifically, not just the stalker, but the female mastermind behind this. It's a real sick way of showing up in life when you get really happy and excited to see somebody prolifically suffer. That's pretty disgusting. But it takes you back to understanding that you can't perceive them as human. These are the demonic principalities. Everything is inverted. They feed off of torment and torture and that horrific type of experience that takes away humanity, right? They want to siphon your humanity. They want to hack into your root chakra and your solar plexus chakra and your sacral chakra. They want to own your relationships. They want to bind for me, trying to bind my womb and stop my, the children that are going to come through in my future. They really went for it, you guys. This is no joke. Anyway, but this whole thing about being alone, they have had it in their mind, getting real cocky, that it equals loneliness. And it's an isolation that they have placed upon me, which initially it was, but then it turned into a choice, because now as everything goes, belly up for them, I'm nowhere to be seen. I'm good to go. I don't have to deal with it. I know it's happening and I get to expose it right here. I get to catalyze it, but I don't have to be a part of it, right? And it's very important to understand that when people betray us, that while it may affect us, and often it can affect us very deeply, there is betrayal syndromes. There's, and I've experienced this. It can be real deep, and that's another way of going into PTSD. While it may affect us, it has nothing to do with us. Okay, when somebody betrays you, when they demean you and they undermine you, when they mistreat you, when they devalue you, when they lie to you, when they cheat on you, whatever it is, when they steal from you, it's only about them. It's a complete reflection of what they're lacking inside, the void of their happiness, their joy. It's an exposure of their shame, their unworthiness, and their inability to feel unconditionally loved. Most likely they were never accepted for who they were. They were never allowed to be loved just for being them. Especially with narcissists. As Frank Yeoman said, narcissism stems from a lack of unconditional love for just being you, only getting love for attention, for performing. This is what's happened in their childhood. They got attention, they got love when they performed, so now they only ever perform, right? They don't know how to be unconditionally loved, so they'll never show it, right? And that's what they're going to project onto you. They're going to try to drain you of all of your unconditional love and joy and truth and authenticity. And authenticity and genuine truth is going to trigger them like all hell. Now, when I think about my stalker, if I were to pick a song for this human, it would be, I've been watching you a la 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 long, a la 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 long, 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 standing across the room. I saw you smile. I said I want to talk to you for a little while. But before I make my move, my emotions start running wild. Her tongue gets tied, and that's no lie. I'm looking in your eyes. Okay, that one's his theme song. Now, the Gang Stalker, I would say, theme song would be, I've got the lovely bunch of coconuts, dee-dee-dee, there they are, just all standing in a row. Big ones, small ones, some as big as your head. Give them a twist and a flick of the wrist, that's what the showman said. Right? Because it's all a show for this one. And what he can gain, and who he can bring around him. Now, meanwhile, for me, it's who's in the shadows, who's ready to play. Are we the hunters, or are we the prey? There's no surrender, there's no escape. Are we the hunters, or are we the prey? That's definitely been my theme song. Okay, so creating safety, forgiveness, and proactive healing of your PTSD is supremely important. Now, I do completely understand that a lot of people are married with children to people on the narcissistic spectrum, and it's very difficult or impossible to create the physical distance. So how do we create a refuge, a sanctuary, if only in our being, in our mind, okay? And you absolutely can heal from PTSD. I have healed myself of PTSD 3 times now, and that is not over exaggerating. The most efficient method I have found is through kinesiology. It's quick. You want to find a methodology that taps into your nervous system, clear it out of your body memory. I love doing shadow work as well. That's really imperative, but quick clearing, EmotionCode practitioners. I'm going to link all of this stuff or most of it down below. I'm going to link my most beloved, trusted EmotionCode practitioner that I just adore and love to work with. All sorts of body tapping, you know, EMDR can be really supportive of this, but you can definitely heal yourself with PTSD. You need to understand it's physiologically wired into your body. Your body is a machine. You can reprogram it at any time. You just need to know how to do, you know, how to reprogram it. What's the code? What's the reset? If you're ready to start taking responsibility for your reality as a creator being, then it's a time to ask yourself, why am I attracting this as a manifester of my reality? Okay, that's very, very important. It's going to be really difficult to do because it's super easy to go into this is happening to me. I am the victim. And it is happening to you. You are a victim, but that's not going to make you feel strong. That's not going to help you step up and understand that you're also dealing with worthy opponents. You're in training. You are a spiritual warrior, okay? They are your peers, right? This is just a polarity, if you want to look at it one way. And there is a place where you don't have to take all of this heinous experience and the efforts to ruin your life over and over and over, sometimes for years and decades on end, some of these people, as personal. It sounds shocking, but it's totally doable. There's a place for genuine, authentic detachment, forgiveness, and love. I've done it. I'm so grateful to these people now because one thing they don't have a clue, they don't get that while they tapped in, they read my timelines, they know my destiny, and there's a huge push from several people, which is shocking, to stop and thwart my destiny for different agendas and different reasons. They got details on what's to come for me and those that are meant to be a part of my destiny. And they've tried to block that. And they did stall it seemingly for a while, but what they actually don't realize is they are also a part of my destiny. They are the reason that my destiny catalyzes and anchors, because my wounding, my shadow, my karma needed such a shakeup, and those that are meant to be in my destiny as well needed such a shakeup to be able to release eons and eons of blockages and curse energy and separation, that it had to be something so massive and so drastic that would catapult me and those that, you know, are a part of my destiny into the freedom of being able to walk that path, to clear the debris. They've worked to ambush my path and my timelines. But the jam is, guys, is that, just like I heard a tarot reader say the other day, if you're battling a battle, you need to understand that while there's smaller skirmishes happening, I'm super paraphrasing here. She talked about you're battling a battle, but there's really a war happening, right? So from now, my perspective, do you want to keep focusing on the insurgents that are ambushing your path so that they can't get the supplies? You can't get the supplies, to the front line. Stop dealing with the small little skirmishes. Expand out. You have a much bigger mission here, okay? You're in training. They've helped you perfect and deal with a significant amount of psychic attack, spiritual warfare, physical attack often, right? Emotional, mental, psychological torture and torment. So much of this is criminal, this will go to court. Hands down, you guys. I have tremendous forgiveness for all of you, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to offer you mercy or sway, because Spirit has very big, unique plans for you guys, because it's your destiny. Don't you see? This whole time, it's been your destiny to catapult me into my destiny. That's a part of the payback of the karma, right? So I am supremely grateful for this experience. It has ensured my prosperity. It has ensured that I wake up and I stop being small, and I remember that I have a huge mission, that we are all so fantastically special. Nobody is better than anybody else. Nobody's less than anybody else. And all of us can change the world, right? And it's time for that. You have changed my world. And I'm so grateful for that. And you're going to watch this happen, and you're going to know that you did that. Thank you. That was because of you. Yeah, right? So please remember that while this derailment seems, all consuming, and it is, it's meant to consume your life. It's meant to take over every aspect of your life. It's meant to deplete you, but it's just a distraction. And ultimately, when you overcome it, when you begin to thrive, when you become a champion of being stalked and gang stalked and moving through narcissistic networking, when you're no longer a victim, when you're now a champion of it, and you see them as, fair game, right? You see them as worthy adversaries and opponents, then you start to understand that these tiny little skirmishes are insignificant and inconsequential in comparison to your bigger mission, because the world needs you. Right? Are you still in training? Maybe you are. Or are you ready to be done with it? Do you still sit in the victimization, or do you understand that all is fair in love and war? What do I mean by that? What I mean is your opponent has no reason to comply to your moral standards. Reference below. They're not going to do right by you. You're not going to make them see that this is wrong and that they shouldn't do it. You're not going to sway them. You tit for tatting with their ego isn't going to help you. It's going to rehook you into narcissistic networks, and it's going to feed the flying monkeys. So you need to disengage. You need to do what's right for you and understand that all's fair in love and war, man. Of course they're showing up like this. That's your challenge. That's what you bit off in this timeline. There's a reason for it, and it's going to make you a better person. Doesn't feel like it right now. Promise you that, but it will. And you will be so much stronger, and you will find, or you can find, pure gratitude for the experience. Because you could never be as amazing as you are at this point without it. You needed that pressure, or at least I did. I needed this pressure. It didn't have to go down in this way. I'm not excusing by any means what is happening. I think it's heinous, grotesque. I'm so grateful it's illegal because there will be justice in a lot of ways that is coming. Though it's exactly what Spirit laid out. I accept it as it is, and I receive everything it's going to bring for me. And I am over the moon that forgiveness frees me of any strongholds or negativity or resentment or anger or upsets towards anybody. They can project all they want onto me, but in this being, there is no envy, there is no jealousy, there is no anger, there is no spite, there is no resentment, there is no hate. It doesn't exist in my being through this. There is just glee, excitement, and childlike enthusiasm for what's next. Because I have spent so much time now in a very unhappy place that they have put me in and forced me into the corner, that now everything is so much more appreciated. Everything is that much more amazing and beautiful. Everything tastes better. Everything smells better. People are so much more amazing. Connections are that much more better. It's wonderful. And that's what happens when we get things taken away from us that we have been taking for granted, even basic things, even the ability to move your pinky, you don't think about, until you get it taken away from you. And then if you are so blessed to get it back, you understand how much value it is. And if you're wise, you always hold on to that appreciation. So yes, I am super grateful to these people, because I needed major help in believing in myself and reawakening my truth. I've been living small. I've been scared to access my greatness. And Spirit knew I needed launched out of that, and it was going to take something big, because that's another generational curse that I have, brought into my lifetime through this lineage and this incarnation. I needed your help, frenemies and enemies and foes, so thank you. And I am just really tickled pink that you didn't block my destiny. You catapulted me. You springboarded me. I couldn't have done it without you, is the reality of it. I don't see it that way. Maybe I could have, and one day maybe I'll see the timelines, but this is great, because I think it happened way faster than it could have otherwise. Now, again, I love Ho'oponopono because it shows me, and I understand that the karma that I'm experiencing is something that I've already done to others in past timelines. I am somebody that loves taking responsibility when I know that I need to take responsibility. Sometimes it takes time, right? But I embrace ego death, and I embrace putting my tail between my legs and learning the hard lessons. It is a tremendous way to grow. It keeps me humble, keeps me in check, and it helps me stay closer and more connected to spirit. So I get that I have done heinous things to all of these people in other timelines, and I've done the due diligence to clear the karma and do the work. And now I get to disengage from everyone, and I get my blessings. Now, if you want to know why you checkmated yourself so thoroughly, from my perspective, loosely put, outside of spirit just will never stand for this. I've told you from day one, you're seeing it now, but that's okay. Everybody's got to learn their hard truths, right? You put your guard down when you fell into the illusion that I'm defeated, because those that are meant to be a part of my destiny seemingly have left my destiny. But that's an illusion. You celebrated too soon, right? And that's where you checkmated yourself, because that's also meant to happen. Everything that's playing out is a part of it, because I'm not the only one that has to awaken here. All of you have to awaken to some capacity, and that's going to take certain adjustments. I'm not in control of that. I don't have control of the timeline. I have learned massive amounts of patience. It's going to continue. And I know why I'm having these learning lessons. I understand the need for the patience for what I'm going to experience in the future, the very near future, honestly. I'm so happy for that, because it's going to make my path that much easier. So that which was holding me, and those that are meant to be in my family and stewards of my destiny and interlinked into my destiny required a major shakeup. And there are huge lessons that needed to be learned, and demonic principalities that still held a domain needed to be disengaged through greed, lust, and narcissism. It's been a big deal for me. It's been lifetimes and lifetimes, so I'm so grateful for it. And as I stated before, forgiveness does not mean I offer mercy or reprieve from what punishments you have earned. I would never do that. It is very, very dangerous to let somebody off from the punishment that they deserve because they haven't learned their lessons. They will repeat it and they will be even worse the next time. I have seen that in very detrimental ways. That is often why murderers become murderers. I'm not saying that anybody we're dealing with is a murderer. I'm just using an example because people didn't ensure that swift justice and punishment that needed to be adhered to and that was fair happened. They don't learn their lessons. They go and they do worse things. Okay. I would never do that. You already totally understand that your illness, that your bankruptcy, that your poverty, your failing relationships, your psychological obsessions, you're going nuts in here, right? I know it. It's because of this. It's because of what you've done. You're suffering and you cannot handle what you've put on me. I went through it. How come you can't deal with it? It's the exact same amount. It's probably less than because spirit often offers mercy. So are you too weak to handle the amount of torment and torture you put on me? Or can you step up to the plate now? Can you learn your lesson? Because that's what's happening. It's all just coming right back on you. That's all it is. It's fair game. I didn't do anything but ensure my sovereignty and make sure that what needs to go back to sender or what spirit needs to deem and judge or clear out or ground or transmute or heal or forgive has done so. This is all you're doing. You signed up for it. You bit off more than you could chew. I warned you the whole way. It's telling of that I am an over caretaker, which often anxious attachment is, because the entire time I have known what you guys are doing. I told you a year and a half ago specific details of what's playing out now. No one paid attention. You remember them now, right? There are so many times where I've given you the exact timelines of what's happening to warn you, to help you. But honestly, I probably didn't. It happened. Maybe it was meant to happen, but you weren't meant to listen, right? Because you needed to go through your lessons. It takes a lot for an ego death of a narcissist. I don't know if it ever really fully happens sometimes, but here we are. So spirit pierces through darkness with light because narcissists are not easy to destroy. It requires a tremendous amount of spirit to destroy a narcissist, or it requires an even darker evil to destroy and demolish a narcissist. I have chosen to stick with spirit. So I wash my hands clean of all of it. All of it's on you. I forgive you. That is not an invitation for you to come anywhere near me. I do not want you in my life. I do not need any of you in my life. Stop pressing me energetically. The more you do it, the more you're going to suffer. You need to retract. You need to submit. You need to repent, or it's going to get worse. And then leave me alone forever, because you know I deserve at least that. The more you press in any form or fashion, even in your thoughts, which is going to be really hard because you're so obsessed, you need help. You need a lot of help before you completely ruin your life. Okay? I implore you, but that's all on you. I hope that this has helped you guys. I know that this was long, but this is my testimony, and I'm so tickled pink to finally be able to express and share my story of what I've been experiencing for a ridiculously long time. I love you guys. I hope to see you Wednesday, October 18th, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live Q&A on YouTube. Talk to you soon. If you're interested in a one-on-one session, coaching, classes, courses, go to worldpeaceprojects.global. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.